Today we're gonna be interviewing Mr. Long. He's like an English teacher, right?
I like an English teacher. I am an English teacher, yeah.
Alright. So we're gonna ask you like a few questions about like your career and stuff.
Okay.
First question is like, where do you like grow up during your childhood?
So I grew up my address was Martinsburg, but I lived closer to Inwood, so was born here, grew up here since then. Spent my first 18 years here, and then went to Morgantown, and then came right back after college.
Second question is, what was it like attending Musselman as a teenager, and then different about teaching here?
So I obviously liked it enough to come back. When I was a student here, as a freshman, the PLC hadn't been built yet, so all the freshmen were just mixed with everybody in the main building. So that was a big difference. We now have this to kind of separate them a little bit. But like I said, I liked it enough. There was a great atmosphere here, and I went to WVU, and at WVU, everybody that goes there loves it. And when I wanted to teach, I wanted to teach at a school where everybody loved it just the same. So coming back to Musselman just made the most sense at that time.
What inspired you to come back here and teach here?
So as far as teaching itself, I always worked summer camp. I've worked summer camp since I was old enough to do it, and working with kids has always been something I was passionate about. And then when I was in college, I started teaching some freshman orientation classes. So I was a sophomore, junior, senior, and I would bring in freshmen and teach them about WVU. And I found that I really like being in front of kids. I really like being in front of a classroom. So that really inspired me to be a teacher. And then coming back here was really just dumb luck, honestly. When I got my degree, Mrs. Klepner was still the principal here. She knew I had a degree, and they needed an English teacher. So she asked me to fill in, and turns out I like it. So stayed here for the next couple of years.
What college did you go to get your teaching degree?
So I actually had a kind of a roundabout way of doing that. I went to WVU and got my English degree. Didn't have anything to do with teaching though, because I didn't realize that till later. So when I came home, took my job here, I went to Wheeling University online, got my teaching certificate through them to become a teacher, and I'm also attending Wheeling now to get my master's in education as well.
What about you believe are the most important skills to learn in a ninth grade English teacher?
In ninth grade English, I think a lot of it is shaking some bad habits that kids develop through middle school. They teach things like 5-paragraph essays, which still have a lot of merit, but there are certain things that we have to get out of that habit for. Same with, like, for example, we're working on an essay now. Starting an essay with a question is fine. That's a perfectly acceptable way, but some students think that that's how you have to do it. So just breaking some bad habits. And also I think the big thing that we always talk about is citing evidence. Make sure you can justify any answer with evidence from what you're reading.
How do you ensure that all students are able to participate and understand the material?
So I'm really lucky that I actually work with Mr. Klepner a lot because he's been teaching. One of my favorite things to say is he's actually been teaching for longer than I've been alive. So we really help balance each other out. And he's really good at going around and making sure that, if I'm teaching, that a student that may or may not look like they know what's going on, he can check with them, make sure that they do know. So that's a big help for me. And then honestly, just talking to kids. Like if you talk to kids, you can figure out a lot about what they know, don't know, and what they're struggling with.
What strategies? Wait, I already asked the question. What do you find the most rewarding part of teaching ninth grade?
So my favorite thing about teaching ninth grade is that those students that I have as freshmen are still here for 3 more years. So they'll come back and talk to me, or I'll coach them in Powder Puff, or I'll run into them at games. And seeing those kids year after year and seeing them grow from these scared or little ninth graders to then seniors that are going out into the world, going to college, getting jobs is super rewarding.
And lastly, what hobbies or activities do you like to participate in outside of school? And have you ever had another job before teaching?
So for the job before teaching, I had a couple. I worked in a hospital in college, worked for Macy's in a warehouse before I took this job, but really it's just mostly been teaching. My hobbies outside of this, I do a lot of stuff, but anything sports related. I officiate basketball from everywhere from like 4 and 5-year-old kids all the way up through college. I officiate football now. I love to read, play video games, all that kind of stuff. Hang out with my family. My brother plays college basketball. I love going to his games. So I like to stay busy and make sure I always have something going on.
All right. Well, that's all the questions I have for you. Thank you for
Appreciate
the
you, Kane.
interview.